Life has a way of teaching us lessons we often try to ignore. One of the harshest yet most liberating truths is realizing that, in the grand scheme of things, no one truly cares about your struggles, your failures, or even your victories as much as you think they do. People may sympathize briefly, nod in acknowledgement, or offer temporary comfort. But everyone is ultimately consumed by their own battles, their own worries, and their own dreams. This realization can feel painful at first, almost like a betrayal, because human beings naturally crave validation and support. From childhood, we are conditioned to seek approval, from parents, teachers, peers, and later from society at large. But the moment you internalize that no one is staying awake at night worrying about your setbacks, you begin to see the world with a new clarity. This truth is not meant to push you into despair, but rather to free you. Because if no one is truly invested in your failures, then you are free to fail, free to take risks, free to stumble, and free to rise again. The burden of trying to please everyone, of constantly worrying about how you are perceived, suddenly loses its weight. Acceptance of this truth allows you to reclaim your energy from external opinions and redirect it toward what truly matters: your growth, your purpose, and your inner peace. When you accept that no one cares, you stop expecting the world to hand you comfort or recognition. Expectations are silent thieves of happiness. They whisper to you that people should check on you when you're struggling, that friends should notice when you're quiet, that family should support you without you asking, or that society should reward your hard work. But expectations often set you up for disappointment. The truth is, most people are too caught up in their own storms to pause and notice yours. When you embrace this reality, something remarkable happens. You take full responsibility for your own life. You no longer wait for someone to save you, because you realize no one is coming. You no longer seek applause for your efforts, because you recognize that applause is fleeting and shallow. Instead, you begin to build for yourself, from yourself. This shift transforms loneliness into solitude, rejection into redirection, and neglect into self-reliance. You start to see challenges as opportunities to prove something to yourself, rather than to others. The absence of external care becomes the fertile ground where inner strength grows. By expecting nothing from anyone, you free yourself from bitterness and disappointment. In fact, you begin to appreciate even the smallest gestures, because you no longer see them as owed to you, but as gifts. And in this acceptance lies the foundation of unshakable resilience. Everything changes when you realize that people care less about your pain and more about how your life affects them. Think about it: when you fail, people may gossip for a while, but soon they return to worrying about their own insecurities and struggles. When you succeed, some may celebrate with you, but many will quietly compare your achievements with their own lives. At its core, the world is indifferent to you, not out of cruelty, but out of human nature. Everyone is the main character in their own story. Accepting this truth allows you to detach from the illusion that you are constantly under a spotlight. No one is watching you as closely as you imagine. Most people are too busy watching themselves. This realization gives you freedom. The freedom to make mistakes without shame, to reinvent yourself without apology, and to pursue dreams that others may not understand. Once you grasp that people's opinions are fleeting and shallow, you stop living as a prisoner to them. You begin to ask yourself, what do I want? Independent of others' approval, what kind of life would make me proud when no one is clapping? In answering these questions honestly, you step into your authentic self. You stop performing for an audience that isn't paying attention, and start living for the one person who is always with you. You. When you accept that no one cares, you stop wasting time trying to be understood by everyone. One of the greatest sources of frustration in life is the desire to explain yourself, to make others see your perspective, your pain, your vision, your dreams. But the reality is, most people are not interested in truly understanding you. They listen only long enough to respond with their own opinions or to redirect the conversation back to themselves. When you recognize this truth, you free yourself from the endless cycle of seeking validation through explanation. You realize that your time and energy are too precious to be spent convincing others of your worth or your path. Instead, you turn inward. You focus on cultivating clarity within yourself so that you no longer need external approval to feel confident in your choices. You stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you because you know their opinion does not alter your reality. This acceptance allows you to walk away from toxic conversations, shallow connections, and empty debates. You begin to live quietly, confidently, and purposefully, knowing that the only person who truly needs to understand your journey is you. The moment you stop begging others to get it, you reclaim both your peace of mind and your sense of direction. Another profound shift happens when you accept that no one cares. You stop playing the victim. As long as you believe others should care more than they do, you leave yourself vulnerable to resentment and disappointment. You think, why didn't they check on me? Or, why didn't they support me? Or, why didn't they believe in me? These questions chain you to victimhood, where your happiness depends on what others failed to do for you. But once you accept that no one owes you anything, not love, not support, not understanding, you step into your power. You take full responsibility for your emotions, your actions, and your outcomes. Victimhood thrives on the belief that the world is unfair, but empowerment thrives on the belief that you can adapt and rise regardless of fairness. This mental shift turns obstacles into challenges you are eager to face, rather than injustices you are bitter about. When you stop expecting others to care, you stop blaming them for your struggles. Instead, you see your life as entirely in your hands. You discover that freedom comes not from being cared for, but from caring for yourself. And paradoxically, once you stop demanding care, you attract healthier relationships, because people are drawn to strength, not to neediness. When you internalize the truth that no one cares, you unlock the courage to live authentically. Most people shape their lives around the imagined judgments of others. They dress a certain way, pursue certain careers, or suppress their true desires because they are terrified of being ridiculed, rejected, or abandoned. Yet, when you finally grasp that people are too consumed with their own insecurities to constantly monitor yours, you find the freedom to be yourself. You stop wearing masks to please others and start building a life that aligns with your soul. This authenticity may shock some people at first, because it challenges the comfort of conformity. But over time it brings you deep fulfillment. You begin to realize that the opinions that once scared you into silence are nothing more than passing thoughts in someone else's head. Thoughts that will be forgotten tomorrow. The fear of judgment loses its grip on you when you accept its insignificance. This liberation encourages you to speak your truth, chase your passions, and design a life that excites you rather than one that impresses others. By understanding that no one truly cares, you become bold enough to stop existing for others and start living for yourself. That is when real transformation begins. Another life-changing aspect of accepting that no one cares is that you stop wasting your energy on proving people wrong. Many people spend years of their lives chasing goals, not because they truly desire them, but because they want to silence doubters. They turn their ambitions into revenge projects, to prove to their parents they were good enough, to show their ex they made a mistake, or to outshine their critics. While this might give temporary fuel, it is an exhausting way to live. Once you realize no one is truly keeping score of your life, you stop burning yourself out to win imaginary battles. Most people are not as invested in your story as you think. They may throw a few opinions here and there, but soon they move on to the next drama in their own lives. By letting go of the urge to prove people wrong, you redirect your energy into proving yourself right. Your work, your dreams, and your goals become an expression of your inner calling. not a performance for an external audience. This switch in mindset makes your journey lighter and more enjoyable. You begin to measure progress by your own standards, not by the applause or silence of others. And in that freedom, you find deeper motivation, because now you're running a race designed by you, for you. When you embrace the reality that no one cares, you also stop fearing rejection. Rejection only stings when you believe others' opinions are the final verdict on your worth. But once you see that people are too distracted by their own lives to truly measure yours, rejection loses its destructive power. If someone dismisses you, ignores you, or criticizes you, it doesn't define you. It only reflects where they are in their own journey. This realization emboldens you to take risks, to step outside of your comfort zone, and to pursue opportunities without the paralyzing fear of, what will they think? You begin to apply for jobs you once felt unqualified for, to start businesses you once doubted, or to share your art, writing, and voice without hesitation. Because you know that whether you fail or succeed, most people will forget about it within days, since they are preoccupied with their own struggles. This detachment makes you bolder and braver than ever before. You stop holding back your gifts out of fear of disapproval, because you understand that disapproval is fleeting, but regret lasts a lifetime. And when you live with this freedom, you begin to create, act, and explore life in a way that feels limitless. Accepting that no one cares also reshapes how you view relationships. When you cling to the belief that others should always prioritize your feelings, you set yourself up for disappointment. Friends will forget to call, family will misunderstand you, partners may not always meet your emotional needs. But when you accept that people are human, flawed, busy, and wrapped in their own struggles, you stop demanding perfection from them. You stop expecting others to be your constant source of happiness and stability. Instead, you start building self-reliance. Relationships transform from a place of desperate need to a place of mutual choice. You no longer cling out of fear of being alone, because you have learned how to stand strong by yourself. This acceptance actually makes your connections healthier. You begin to appreciate people for what they genuinely give, instead of resenting them for what they don't. Gratitude replaces entitlement, and respect replaces dependency. Paradoxically, when you no longer demand that others care for you endlessly, you become more lovable. People are drawn to those who radiate strength, independence, and authenticity, not to those who drain them with expectations. So in accepting that no one truly cares in the way you once wished, you discover the beauty of relationships built on freedom rather than obligation. When you accept that no one cares, you stop competing with others and start competing with yourself. The world conditions us to constantly measure our progress against other people. Who has the better career, the bigger house, the happier relationship, the more impressive achievements? This endless comparison game drains your energy, because no matter how much you achieve, someone else will always appear to be doing better. But once you realize that people are too focused on their own journeys to truly obsess over yours, you stop caring about the scoreboard. You understand that the only race worth running is the one against who you were yesterday. This shift changes everything. Instead of jealousy, you feel inspiration. Instead of envy, you feel curiosity. You begin to ask yourself not, am I better than them? But, am I better than I was last week, last month, last year? Progress becomes personal, not competitive. And with this new perspective, your achievements bring genuine satisfaction because they are no longer diluted by comparison. Accepting that no one really cares frees you from the prison of competition and allows you to focus on self-mastery, the only kind of victory that matters. Accepting that no one cares also changes the way you handle pain and failure. In moments of struggle, we often expect others to notice, to comfort us, to lift us back up. And when that doesn't happen, we feel abandoned or invisible. But when you embrace the truth that no one owes you that level of attention, you stop resenting people for their absence. You begin to understand that healing is your responsibility, not theirs. This doesn't mean isolating yourself or rejecting support when it's offered, but it does mean shifting the expectation. You start building inner tools, discipline, patience, emotional intelligence, that help you process setbacks on your own. Instead of crying out for someone to rescue you, you learn to rescue yourself. Instead of drowning in self-pity, you rise with self-compassion. Over time, this resilience becomes one of your greatest strengths. You no longer crumble when others fail to notice your pain because you never expected them to. And paradoxically, the less you demand from people during your struggles, the more likely they are to support you willingly, because your strength inspires rather than drains them. This acceptance transforms failure from something humiliating into something empowering, because you no longer see it through the lens of external judgment. Another powerful change occurs when you accept that no one cares. You start living in alignment with your own values instead of society's script. Much of what people chase, status, money, fame, approval, comes from the deep desire to be noticed and admired. But once you realize that admiration is shallow and temporary, you stop letting it dictate your choices. You begin asking bigger, more meaningful questions. What truly matters to me? What kind of life feels fulfilling, even if no one applauds it? This clarity allows you to step off the treadmill of societal expectations and design a path that resonates with your soul. Maybe it means pursuing a career that pays less but brings joy. Maybe it means living simply instead of chasing luxury. Maybe it means dedicating yourself to art, service, or growth, even if others don't understand it. The freedom lies in knowing you don't need their understanding. By detaching from the illusion of external care, you find the courage to create a life that feels authentic. And authenticity brings a deeper sense of peace than approval ever could. Once you stop living for the world's recognition, you start living for your own truth, and that is when your life truly transforms. When you accept that no one cares, you stop waiting for the right time to start living your life. Many people delay their dreams because they secretly hope someone will notice, validate, or push them forward. They think, when people believe in me, I'll begin, or when I get recognition, I'll take the risk. But this mindset keeps them paralyzed. Once you embrace the truth that people are not sitting around thinking about your potential, you realize the only person who can greenlight your dreams is you. This gives you an incredible sense of urgency. You stop procrastinating because you see that no audience is coming to cheer you into action. You stop hesitating because you understand that no one is watching closely enough to care if you stumble. This freedom allows you to take messy action, to experiment, to fail, and to try again, without the burden of imagined judgment. The right time stops being something you wait for, and instead becomes the moment you decide to start. When you stop expecting others to care about your timing, you realize the best time to live your life has always been now. Another transformation happens when you accept no one cares. You discover peace in solitude. Many people fear being alone because they equate it with being unloved or forgotten. But once you accept that others are not constantly invested in your inner world, solitude becomes less of a punishment and more of a gift. It becomes the space where you reconnect with yourself, hear your own thoughts clearly, and cultivate inner strength. Alone time stops being something you avoid and starts being something you value. You begin to see solitude as the soil where growth happens, where you refine your goals, deepen your self-awareness, and recharge your spirit. The fear of loneliness fades because you no longer crave constant attention or validation. You stop chasing people who barely care, and instead, you pour into yourself. This shift also strengthens your relationships. When you are at peace with solitude, you stop clinging to people out of desperation, and instead, you connect with them out of genuine choice. You show up in relationships as a whole person, not a half begging to be completed. In this way, accepting that no one cares doesn't isolate you, it liberates you. Finally, when you accept that no one cares, you step into the most powerful truth of all. You are free to define your life entirely on your own terms. You no longer live as a performer for a distracted audience. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to gain approval, prove yourself, or avoid judgment. Instead, you realize that the pen has always been in your hand. This acceptance transforms your mindset from dependent to independent, from reactive to proactive, from passive to empowered. You stop asking, "Will they like this?" and start asking, "Does this align with who I am?" You stop wondering, "What will people think?" and start declaring, "This is what I think." In that moment, life becomes yours again. Ironically, when you stop caring about who cares, you often find that people respect you more. Strength, authenticity, and self-reliance are magnetic qualities. But even if no one notices, it doesn't matter, because you're no longer living for their notice. You are living for your own growth, your own peace, your own joy. And that is the ultimate transformation. When you stop chasing external care, you begin to cultivate an inner strength so unshakable that everything about your life changes. Thank you for watching this video.